Hey there, when the Z6III was launched, I anticipated a solid 33 megapixel sensor and features similar to that of the Nikon ZF. But I was wrong. Let me explain. Welcome to Frames Team, and if you're new here or if you're coming back here and you're unsubscribed to the channel, please subscribe and let me help me reach 6,000 subscribers soon. But I was at the Nikon event and a few things jumped out. Firstly, I did not expect the Z6III to have a design that's not only better thought out but also aesthetically more pleasing. I honestly felt as if the bump or the EVF bump on the Z8, Z9, and even the Z6 II, Z7 II, they were a bit too much. It looked like they were taller. I mean, they look to me slightly disproportionate in the way they are shaped. But on the Z6III, it's kind of smoothened out. It's like as if the unit is kind of more rooted into the body, and sort of it has a more rounded look and more proportionate look, which is aesthetically looks a little bit more, I would say, balanced. The ergonomics, the feel of the camera has definitely improved. It in fact feels a slightly better built camera than the Z6 II. Surprisingly, I didn't think that it'll be better built than the Z6 II, but obviously it felt like that to me. And we'll find that out, of course, in the coming few months. We'll find that out. But to me, it felt better built. The ergonomics was slightly improved. The grip was actually bigger than the Z6III, but since I've been using the Z8 so much, I actually felt as if it's not as comfortable as the Z8. And it was not only me, there were other guys who actually had used the Z8. Holding the Z6III right now, to them it felt like they would have liked the camera to be a little longer in height, and a little more space between the fingers when they hold the camera. That would have been nice. But I think right now, compared to the current Canon, the current Sonys, it's definitely, and in the even the current Z6 II, it's definitely a much more ergonomically better feeling camera. Let's discuss the flip out screen, because I think that's an interesting one by Nikon. This time, Nikon made a bold move here, catering not only to traditional photographers, but also to vloggers, videographers who need this flexibility. Of course, in that event, I met as many people who were unhappy about the flip out screen as people who were happy. And there were many videographers this time. Typically, in a Nikon event, I see only photographers, but this time I saw a lot more hybrid users. In fact, I saw quite a few social media filmmakers with quite a bit of client work, and those guys were actually using Z8 and Z9 primarily. I didn't see anyone using the ZF, but I had carried my ZF into the event, and so many people were actually interested to touch the camera, see the camera. All the filmmakers were actually mostly using the Z8, the Nikon users. So that group really appreciated the flexibility of the tilt-out screen. In fact, there were a few wildlife photographers who were photographers first, but it felt as if they are discovering video more and more, and they in fact were okay with the flip out screen. In fact, it was more the portrait shooters and the street photographers and a few of the wedding photographers who were not so happy with the flip out screen as photographers, but their counterparts who are filmmakers were completely happy. So yeah, it's always going to be a divided house. Now, one more thing that was interesting and found some mention in the Nikon launch was the audio record feature. Right now, it can actually record in inline mode with 24-bit audio, which is going to provide much superior quality and dynamic range for the audio attached to your video files in camera. That's a very, very good feature. I always found that the Nikon camera, the video files were a bit tinny, and I didn't like them. But I think this means I'm going to use the sound that's captured in the camera a lot more and not rely so much on an additional sort of recorder where you record the audio. Nikon also talked about the image cloud. The feature is all about using presets, stunning presets online, and user image recipes for instant application and all that. Plus, of course, wireless image uploads apparently have been made easy. I have to figure out how this works. So yeah, that's something that found mention. At the launch event, another thing that jumped out to me was the kind of creators that Nikon invited this time. Nikon actually asked a wildlife photographer to present her experience on the Z6III. To me, it felt like a shift in Nikon's approach to the category. Because I'll tell you why. Because the 2,500, 2,000 US dollars price point camera is not the one that Nikon typically would look at as the camera for wildlife shooters. But somehow Nikon showed a lot of confidence in the autofocus and the build quality of this camera, so much so that they actually let a wildlife photographer lead the event and the show. The photographer actually went in depth about how the HD 240 FPS video made her discover movements in animals that are usually missed in normal speed video. She also talked about how the Z6III opened up new possibilities in night shooting because of the bright EVF and the AF capability to shoot and focus at -10 EV. Next on the stage were actually a couple of known wedding photographers and filmmakers. The important point they made is that the entire team can now streamline the process by owning the same camera. Previously, someone was using, the photographers were mostly using the Z7 line or the Z6 line, but the filmmakers in the team were either using a Sony or have recently picked up a Z9 or a Z8. Now they think that the entire team of 5, 6, or 10 people can use the same camera. That's apparently going to save them a lot of time and a lot of money and streamline the entire process. They don't need a Z8 for video and something else for photos right now, because of wedding photography and filmmaking, 4K, 6K, and 24 megapixels is just enough. It's just enough for client delivery. The photographers talked about straight out of camera image quality, high ISO cleanliness, and someone talked about how the JPEGs had nice clean color output and very clean overall output even at ISO as high as 12,800. And the flexibility on the AF box shapes, apparently this one has more flexibility in how the autofocus red boxes can be shaped. So the photographer talked about the benefit of the flexibility that you have in terms of how you can shape the AF boxes. Right now, if you use a Z7 or a Z6 or any of the other Z cameras, there are a few shapes that the wide AF box can take, the red box can take. This one apparently has a lot more options. You can really turn it into any sort of square or rectangle or vertical shape you want. The wedding videographer was very happy that the flip out screen now exists on a mid-level Nikon camera. He was also very happy about the fact that it's got 6K and a much improved stabilization. In conclusion, I was wrong. I was wrong because the Z6III has surpassed my expectations. It's not just an upgrade we needed on the Z6 II, it's also Nikon setting a new standard for the mid-tier all-rounder camera options. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. 87% of you watching aren't subscribed yet, and it only takes a second for you. Stay tuned for more reviews and insights, especially on the Z6III and how it compares to the ZF and other bodies. So a lot of interesting stuff to come in the next 2-3 weeks. Watch it for that. I'm going to see you soon with another one.